Quebec City, August 1943. The most powerful men in the Allied war effort are gathered for the Quadrant Conference. Churchill, Roosevelt, the combined chiefs of staff, men who between them control the fate of the entire war. Lord Mountbatten walks into the room carrying a block of ice and a pistol. He places the ice block on the floor, steps back, and fires. The bullet ricochets off it and embeds itself in the wall. Nobody moves. Then Mountbatten produces a second block, identical in appearance, and fires again. Same result. He turns to the assembled commanders and explains that neither block is ordinary ice. Both are Pykrete, a material invented by a British eccentric that is stronger than concrete, self-repairing, and almost impossible to sink. And Britain, he tells them, intends to build an aircraft carrier out of it. The Germans, when their intelligence services pieced together what the British were planning, were not amused. They were terrified. To understand why anyone would seriously propose building a warship out of ice, you need to understand the problem it was designed to solve. By 1942, the Battle of the Atlantic was killing Britain one convoy at a time. German U-boats were operating in the mid-Atlantic Black Gap, that vast stretch of ocean beyond the range of land-based aircraft, where convoys crossed unprotected and submarines hunted freely. The solution was obvious to anyone who looked at a map. Put aircraft over the Black Gap and the U-boats lose their sanctuary. The problem was equally obvious. The Black Gap was too far from any land base. Conventional aircraft carriers were desperately scarce and astronomically expensive. Building enough steel carriers to cover the Atlantic would take years Britain did not have. Geoffrey Pyke looked at this problem and arrived at a solution that would have got most men committed to an institution: build a carrier out of ice. Pyke was not a conventional man by any measure. He had escaped from a German internment camp during the First World War by studying the psychology of his guards so carefully that he could predict and exploit their behavior patterns. He had made and lost a fortune in commodity trading using statistical analysis decades before anyone called it data science. He thought in solutions that other people's minds simply refused to generate.
In 1942, working as a scientific advisor to Lord Mountbatten's combined operations, Pyke observed that the North Atlantic, where the crisis was worst, was surrounded by cold water. Ice, he noted, was free. Ice floated. Ice could theoretically be shaped into any form. The problem with pure ice was obvious. It was brittle, it melted, and gunfire shattered it. Pyke needed something stronger. He found it in an American scientist's research. Mark and Wendt had experimented with adding wood pulp to water before freezing. The resulting material, which Pyke named Pykrete in his own honor with characteristic modesty, was extraordinary. 14% wood pulp by weight, 86% water. The resulting material had the compressive strength of concrete. It was extraordinarily tough. The same bullet that shattered pure ice simply absorbed into Pykrete and stopped. More remarkably, Pykrete melted at a fraction of the rate of pure ice, and most extraordinarily of all, it was self-repairing. Pump cold water into a damaged section and the material froze solid again, healing itself. Pyke calculated that a ship built from Pykrete would require almost no steel. It could be constructed by freezing a mold in Arctic conditions using refrigeration pipes to maintain temperature in warmer waters. The crew would live and work inside a vessel that was, in the most literal sense, part of the ocean itself. The proposed dimensions were staggering: 2,000 feet long, 300 feet wide, a flight deck large enough to operate conventional aircraft, displacement of 2 million tons, roughly 150 times that of a conventional fleet carrier, walls 40 feet thick, a vessel so massive that torpedoes would simply carve chunks from its sides without affecting its structural integrity. Pyke called it Project Habakkuk, named after the Old Testament prophet who declared, "I will work a work in your days which ye will not believe." He was not being ironic. Churchill read Pyke's proposal at 3 in the morning, which is when he did his best thinking, and immediately became its most powerful advocate. He fired off a memorandum to his chiefs of staff demanding urgent attention. The project was classified at the highest level. A prototype was commissioned. The prototype was built not in the Atlantic, but in a small lake in the Canadian Rockies, Pykrete Lake, near Jasper, Alberta. In the winter of 1942 to 1943, a team of Canadian engineers and a small number of conscientious objectors employed as laborers constructed a 60-foot scale model of the proposed carrier, fitted with working refrigeration machinery powered by a 1-horsepower motor. The results confirmed everything Pyke had claimed. The Pykrete structure maintained its integrity through the Canadian summer. The refrigeration system kept the interior frozen while the surface temperature rose well above freezing. The material performed exactly as calculated. The Quebec demonstration followed. Mountbatten's theatrical pistol performance was not showmanship for its own sake. It was a calculated demonstration designed to overcome the instinctive disbelief that described any description of the project. Seeing a bullet bounce off ice in front of your eyes was considerably more persuasive than reading a technical specification. If you're finding this interesting, a quick subscribe helps more than you know. German intelligence became aware of the project through intercepts and agent reports that described something large being constructed in the Canadian wilderness, something connected to naval operations, something involving refrigeration equipment on an industrial scale. The precise nature of Habakkuk remained unclear to German analysts, which made it more frightening rather than less. The German naval staff had spent considerable effort calculating the minimum number of aircraft carriers required for the Allies to close the Atlantic Black Gap. Their conclusion was that the Allies did not have enough steel, enough shipyard capacity, or enough time to build that number using conventional methods. This calculation was the foundation of Donitz's strategic confidence. If the British had found a method of producing carrier-scale vessels that did not depend on conventional shipyard capacity, that calculation collapsed entirely. German analysts who reviewed the fragmentary intelligence on Habakkuk could not determine what the British were building, but they could determine that it was large, that it was being built unusually fast, and that conventional assumptions about Allied shipbuilding limitations might no longer apply. That uncertainty itself was a strategic weapon. The project died not because the engineering failed, but because the war moved faster than the construction timeline. The critical blow was the escort carrier program. American shipyards, applying mass production techniques to a simplified carrier design, began producing small aircraft carriers at a rate that shocked even optimistic Allied planners. These vessels could not operate the largest aircraft, but they could carry anti-submarine patrol planes, and they could be built in months rather than years.
Simultaneously, very long-range Liberator bombers, modified with additional fuel tanks, began closing the Black Gap from land bases in Iceland and the Azores. The problem that Habakkuk was designed to solve was being solved by other means, faster than Pykrete ships could be constructed. By late 1943, the strategic rationale had weakened. By early 1944, with the Battle of the Atlantic turning decisively in Allied favor, the project was formally suspended. The prototype in Pykrete Lake was allowed to melt. It sank to the bottom, where it remains today, a scheduled historic site beneath 12 meters of water. Geoffrey Pyke did not survive long after the war. He died in 1948, alone, in circumstances suggested suicide. A man whose mind had operated at a frequency the institutions around him could never quite tune into. His contributions to the war effort extended beyond Habakkuk. He had also proposed the Weasel, a revolutionary snow vehicle that saw extensive Allied use, but he received little official recognition for any of it. The story of Project Habakkuk is sometimes told as a comedy: the mad Englishman who wanted to build ships from ice, the theatrical demonstration in Quebec, the prototype that melted in a Canadian lake. This framing misses the point entirely. Pykrete worked. The engineering was sound. The strategic logic was real. At the moment Pyke proposed it, in the darkest period of the Atlantic battle, it represented a genuine solution to a problem that was killing thousands of merchant sailors and threatening to strangle Britain into surrender. The fact that other solutions arrived in time does not make Habakkuk ridiculous. It makes it unnecessary. Those are very different things. The German High Command, piecing together fragments of intelligence about something large and inexplicable being built in the Canadian wilderness, understood this instinctively. They did not laugh, they could not afford to. Because they had learned by 1943 that when the British said they were going to do something impossible, the correct response was not disbelief, it was fear. And that is Project Habakkuk.